I think wisdom is good judgment based upon pattern recognition with a nice alchemy, a perfect alchemy of confidence and doubt. And so let me unpack that for a moment with the confidence and doubt one piece first. Anybody who says that they're the wisest person in the world, and we sometimes hear that from people, isn't very wise, because a wise person knows what they don't know, and they have a certain amount of doubt about what they are still to learn. The pattern recognition piece is something that I think there's a lot of evidence that when people can actually recognize a pattern, it starts to become intuitive and it starts to become instinctual, and you can actually say, I understand what the right answer is because somehow my past has actually informed me of this. And so pattern recognition, so that's why in some cases you could say wisdom is something you get as you get older, but if you're really, there's no evidence, frankly, I hate to say it to those of us who are older in the crowd, there's actually zero evidence that wisdom and age actually are in tandem. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of studies that show that they're not. Yeah. But if you cultivate wisdom in a way where you actually learn from your mistakes, and that allows you to actually build the pattern recognition, that takes you back to my first part of the definition, which is good judgment. And good judgment has a lot to do with that pattern recognition and the fact that you have the confidence and doubt. So that's a very long-winded way of saying wisdom is something that you probably cultivate over time based upon that collection of ingredients.
Well, that's a good definition. I would say another way of saying it, or something I've learned from Chip, is that wisdom is also understanding the consequences of your decisions. When you're very young, you can be naive. The naivety can be an advantage because the consequences sometimes could edit your thinking. You're like, well, that thing might happen and therefore I won't do it. And being young can be freeing. But not knowing the consequences of your decisions could also create a lot more work on the other side. And when you're starting a company and it's growing really fast, you can't be afforded very much of a learning curve. You think about it like in life, you're afforded all this time to learn things. And then you start a company, and the whole point of a startup is a company designed for scale, and it must grow fast. It's like a rocket getting into orbit. It needs a certain amount of speed to get into the atmosphere. What do you do when you have limited life experience? Even if you have a lot of life experience, if you're entering something new, how do you have a very steep learning curve? And how do you accelerate the learning curve? You have to be incredibly curious, and you have to seek out people that have more wisdom than you. And by the way, many of the most important things in life I found are timeless. They don't actually change. The technology changes, the implementation changes, the details change, but all the regrets you have, all the mistakes I made that I wish I did differently were things that were probably more timeless than like timely. And of course, therefore, I wasn't the first person to learn them. And I like to think that I should encounter and solve for the first time problems that haven't been solved before. But why should I be a guinea pig and solve a problem that has been solved before? And so I learned to go to sources. Instead of reading every book, spend the time finding the definitive source. And that led me to a variety of people, with design. I shamelessly, you have to be shameless, by the way. I shamelessly sought out Jonathan Ive. He is the head of design for Apple. But when it came to hospitality and transformational thinking, here was the person right here.